Hey guys, so recently we got the second special for season 3 of The Owl House, and today I just wanted to share my thoughts on it. Now, there was a bit of an interesting wrinkle before it came out, where about 2 weeks before the official air date, that the episode was leaked. I think it was through Canadian iTunes, but through that, there was stuff spreading around about it, and people knew about it beforehand, and there was this whole controversy about people who decide to spread the leaks and spoil it. Now, fortunately, I was able to avoid all this and was able to watch it as intended on the release date. And for the most part, I felt like the actual special was pretty good. I mean, sort of in line with what I was expecting. And I believe it's coming out to be around the same level as the first special. However, while I do think there are higher highs with this special compared to the last one in terms of the feel and obviously knowing where these characters are, I will admit there were a couple more weird elements with this special compared to the first one that definitely complicate my thoughts on it, but we'll go through it. So, obviously, they end up going back to the Boiling Isles, which is where pretty much the entire special takes place. And again, we do get caught up in what exactly happened ever since the main cast got kicked out, or at least the main cast that did get kicked out. And obviously, we see that King ended up becoming sort of a guardian for the Collector as the Collector started playing the Owl House game, which I guess involved just taking up everyone and turning them into dolls so that they won't run away from him in fear, but also trying to catch Ida, who is the Owl Lady. And we even see like Tara like pretending to be the Owl Lady so that the Collector can capture them. And we even see Tara at one point saying that this was just a deal that she made in order to not be turned into a doll. And the fact that she just says this out loud in front of the Collector is pretty ridiculous, but pretty humorous moment there. But along the way, we see King like trying to nudge the Collector in the right direction, how maybe this isn't such a good idea to be turning people into dolls, but the Collector is like pretty naive. I mean, they're pretty much supposed to be this eternal, super powerful, childlike character, so take that as you will. But it turns out that despite seeming like she was captured, Ida is just fine. So is Lilith, and we do see them trying to come together in order to stage this coup, per se, of taking out the Collector. While the King knows where the Owl Lady is, but for whatever reason, the Collector is just fine with the King knowing where the Owl Lady is without actually like pointing them in that direction, which I did find a bit weird, but Collector seems fine with it. So anyway, they go back and forth. Unfortunately, Hootie did not survive, as Hootie ultimately got turned into like a doll. Also, Rain got turned into a doll, which we'll come back to later. And the Collector, for the most part, is pretty interesting as a character. And it's pretty interesting seeing his arc over the course of the episode, where he slowly comes around to seeing that King may not be entirely on his side. Obviously, Bellows ends up sneaking his way back into the Boiling Isles and is eventually able to talk with the Collector after like embodying the Reigns doll, like, and through that is able to speak to the Collector, saying that the King and the Owl Lady and Lilith are planning to eventually seal him back in, which did get a bit of foreshadowing during the scene where the Collector is going to bed and he asks King to read him a bedtime story. But for whatever reason, the book that he chose out included like this weird passage that he didn't want King to read, so he just had him read like this really dumb line below there. Now, it's possible that this could actually be the sealing spell that ultimately puts the Collector back in his place, and obviously it makes sense why the Collector wouldn't want him to read that, but at the same time, it's like, why would you have that so readily available? I mean, you're just asking for King to eventually come back and use that against you, but whatever. And then later on, once Bellows is able to talk to him and is able to like make him like watch King as he's like talking with Ida and Lilith, like he's able to see like where they are. And it's during that time that King says, we need a more permanent solution to the Collector problem. He needs to be stopped for good, which really, are we doing this? Like it falls into the same like specific eavesdropping trope where you only watch in and listen to the most damning part of like what one is saying, and then literally the second that the Collector stops watching, it cuts back to King and he's saying, maybe the Collector is good after all, which is really dumb in my opinion. But again, it sets up why the Collector is so mad at King by the end of it, and really by extension comes to see that all these characters are coming up to rise up against him. So again, I felt that was pretty well set up throughout it, but still had some annoying tropes within it. Which then brings me to the main cast, who ends up returning to the Bowling Isles and seeing just what has been going on. And for the most part, it was like fine. Like they don't really get that much done. Like the main goal for them throughout the special is just finding a way of getting to the archives so that they can eventually find Ida and, like, by extension, deal with the collector that way. But along the way, there's some shenanigans. I mean, Hunter is pretty much a sad boy for most of the special, where he's dealing with all the trauma that happened at the end of the first special between, like, the fact that Bellows was attacking him and the fact that Flapjack ended up giving his life in order to revive him. I don't know, just feeling guilt about that. And he was a bit of an edgelord at points, but makes sense given the circumstances. What really came out of left field for me was Willow, where she gets a bit of an arc during the special of her being seen as the reliable one and how she's like holding in all of these pent up feelings. And we see early on that Camilla like is trying to tell her, even reliable people need like help sometimes. And she's like, oh, I'm just fine, which is like obviously foreshadowing for her causing problems later on due to these feelings. And I will say that I wasn't quite expecting the special to go in that direction. I mean, I guess it makes sense that Willow's reliable, I guess. But I never saw Willow's being like overly reliable to where she is like this rock per se. I mean, I always saw everyone as being a bit reliable on their own. And really, if anything, I thought Camilla was probably the more the reliable one. As even the first special dealt with Camilla's own feelings. Like, we got that whole dream sequence of her, like, having these memories of like when Luce was being recommended like the camp and stuff. Like, really, if anything, I would see Camilla as being the reliable one. But since a lot of those issues were addressed more in the first special, I guess this time it's Willow's turn, I guess. And then later on, like, we see Willow like really like getting sad and like her like turning herself into a plant, and then eventually Hunter is able to help her break through, and then she starts crying and letting it all out, and she's like, I miss my dads. And I don't know. I just found it a little funny, like when Hunter is like carrying her and like she just has this frozen sad face. Like, I don't know, like it is an emotional moment, but I just find that face to be kind of funny. So, like, that was something that was going on. And then there's also Luce's whole stick where she was obviously coming to terms with the fact that once this is all done, she's going to eventually move back to the human realm and never come back to the Boiling Isles, which I guess means she's cutting herself off from all these other characters like Ida, and even her girlfriend Amity, which, by the way, Amity didn't really get too much screen time in this special, which I was a little disappointed by, but obviously they had to divide their attention among other things. And obviously we do get Camilla talking a bit about it, and there was this whole, like, is she gonna say it, is she not gonna say it, but obviously with everything else going on, New Luce just didn't, like, spit it out at any point. So obviously they're just going to kick that more to the third special. And I mean, I guess Luce is eventually going to come around to like this third option per se, where either like she decides to go back and forth once like things become more stable in the Boiling Isles, or I guess maybe she'll even have Amity and like some of the others move to the human realm and live there full time, which I don't know about that. I mean, considering they still have people living in the Boiling Isles, so I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's probably going to be more of this back and forth, or maybe do what Star Versus did and just have the Boiling Isles and the human realm merge, because that is a happy ending for everyone. So, like that's something else going on. And then obviously they end up going to Hexside, where it turns out that there's this new underground society that's residing within the new Hexside. We see that there was his clash that happened early on, which resulted in Principal Bum being turned into a doll and all of Bosch's other friends being turned into dolls as well, to where now Bosch is now a sad girl. But through this, she becomes the president of the student council, which is a bit of a deal, as Hexside never had a student council before, but they're the ones that are sort of running everything. And it turns out that Basha is doing a pretty bad job at it. I mean, Basha doesn't seem all too eager to really do anything to address the whole collector situation. It's more like, we tried it before, but look at what happened. We lost all these people, so we might as well just stay hidden. And at first, I thought this was just Bosch's way of, like, if we still have the collector around, we still need the society in which I'm the leader, and that if anyone has any ideas that we don't need to really do anything, then I get to still be in power. But then later on, it turns out that Kiki was just using Basha as this pawn so that she could eventually overthrow everything and then start her own empire. And then obviously that culminates with all the Hexside people coming around, realizing that, hey, maybe it's not a good idea to just sit around and do nothing. Maybe we should actually do something about this. It ends with them like giving the main cast enough time to escape once Kiki tries attacking them. When they realize that Kiki's up to no good, they decide to attack them in turn. And I did find it interesting as well, like Bosch's behavior during a lot of the special, where again, even though I was still like seeing a lot of this before the whole Kiki stuff, as Basha like needing the situation to remain this way so that she can still be seen as important, it was interesting seeing her trying to reconcile with Amity and like some of the others, but then like them just letting her know that Basha is just a mean girl and that she doesn't deserve to have friends, or I guess they don't deserve to be friends with her. So I don't know, I found that interesting as well. And then it ends on a cliffhanger where they are able to get to the archives, but by then the collector knows everything and it just ends with them like about to like ambush them, I guess. So on the whole, I did find this to be a pretty good special, and at this point I am pretty excited to see how this all end. I mean, we obviously have one special left, and again, I'm curious to see how they'll stick the landing here. Now, again, I know other series before have had less than ideal endings, particularly on the Disney Channel. I mean, Gravity Falls definitely had some weird stuff going on in its ending. Star Versus, I mean, it's Star Versus, so there's that. I do have a bit more confidence that this show will have a more solid ending, even with the fact that season 3 was rushed. But honestly, I think the fact that season 3 is being shortened like this, and like they really have to like get around a lot of this filler and get more so to the point, I do think it could work out for them, and I still think it is kind of working out for them, where they are able to tell like this story in a somewhat concise manner. Now, granted, I still think they're throwing in some pretty weird stuff in these specials, partly to fill out time, but also to just probably deal with things that they probably would have done if they had gotten a full third season. But I still like the special, and I still think there are some good things within it. And again, I'm excited to see what will happen next. So there we go. That will do it for this week's video. If you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out with the channel. And I have more content like this in the future, so stay tuned for that. And if you haven't already, be sure to join my Discord server, which I'll leave a link to join in the description. There's a lot of stuff coming your way. But for now, that's the video. See ya.